Welcome everyone for the astrology capsule for the month of September 2018. There will be many very important aspects. First of all, you remember how Saturn is accompanying the full moon since about 6 months? Well, September is the last of those months. So, it's very strong. It's going to be in square, so Saturn will be in Capricorn. It will form a square with the moon in Aries and with the sun, which will be in conjunction with Mercury in Libra. So it will be a square this time, so a very strong tension, but it will be a very beneficial tension because it will bring our awareness to that connection with Saturn. And believe it or not, Saturn will pass it on to Uranus to accompany the full moons. Yes, Saturn and Uranus are forming a trine since a while, and they are tuning themselves together because Saturn was retrograding. He's stopped recently, and he's starting to be direct again. And Uranus on his side will start retrograding. Well, he's already started at this point to retrograde. So he will actually take the lead into following the full moon's degree. It's always a matter of degree. It's not a matter of following the exact position of the full moon. It's just that they will be at the same degree in another sign usually, except in October, where Uranus will be exactly on the moon in conjunction. So that will be very, very intense. So if you look at that on a higher level, you will see that we're kind of passing from a Saturn energy to a Uranus energy. And this is a really solid shift. We're going from personal karma energy, personal destiny energy, Saturn with his wisdom, but also he's very rigorous, he's very demanding and clear, and yeah, he's very wise, let's say, in a positive way. But then we're moving towards something more collective, more global, more Uranian. So that's a really strong shift. And it's a great opening of the mind. And if you think about it, it's also a big shift when you probably heard that, oh yes, we're moving into the age of Aquarius. Well, the age of Aquarius is also very connected to this shift from Saturn to Uranus, because for a really long time, the planet that is ruling Aquarius was Saturn. It still is, but now we also add to it Uranus, since we discovered Uranus about 200 something years ago. So, and now we're also shifting from Saturn to Uranus in our mind. And this is all happening at that very moment where we're entering the age of Aquarius. So you see the connections? And actually it's very deep, it's very important, but very few people will talk about that because very few people will actually notice that Saturn did follow the full moons for a certain period of time, and noticed also that is quite rare and special. And there's a meaning about that, very, very deep. And what makes it even more rare is that Saturn is passing that role on to Uranus exactly at the moment where Saturn stops doing it, and Uranus is there ready to do it after they've been in trine for a while. So that's very, very deep, and it shows how we are, as a humanity, we're passing from a Saturnian point of view to a Uranian point of view. And I'm sure that worldwide we'll see impacts of that. Probably politically, there will be a lot of that will probably show quite a bit. There will be probably impacts of this shift. It's very huge, and it's happening. The shift itself will really be happening on the full moon of September, which is on September 24th, which is right between the equinox, the fall equinox, and also the celebration of Saint Michael, which is on September 29. So the 24th of September is right in that period of time. And if you know about Michaelic energy and connections, which Rudolf Steiner talked a lot about, If you know about that energy, you'll find that passing from Saturn to Uranus is exactly in that line, precisely. So that is very, very strong. And this moment, the equinox of the fall equinox this year of 2018 is very, very important. It's a very important moment. It might be a little bit hidden, like in your personal work, on yourself, on your personal development. It might happen there mainly, but I would think that it will probably even show like politically, even in specific events worldwide. We might not see it right away because it's not something obvious, but it's happening for sure. So inside will probably feel it. We'll see how it goes exactly. It will be different for everyone, for sure. We're all different and we all tune to those aspects differently. So that will be very, very interesting for sure. So that's the main one. This square with Saturn and Sun in conjunction with Mercury in Libra and the Moon in Aries, square with both of those places. Saturn, and at the meantime is putting a lot of attention on that square and passing his role on to Uranus. It's a very, very important one. And when an aspect like that, like the role of Saturn, when it gets to its end, it's kind of our chance to kind of extract the main lesson from all we lived with this accompaniment of Saturn and the full moon during the last, it will be 7 months actually, which is a lot. And so the last 7 months, some lessons to withdraw from all that work we did, very connected with the feminine principle, with the Divine Mother, if you push it into the greatest image we could get from it. So that's a very, very, very important moment. I couldn't say it enough, but there you go, you heard it. So next one, another very important point will be more concerning the new moon of September now. There's a lot of aspects at this point. There's first a huge square between Venus and Mars. Venus will just enter the sign of Scorpio at the moment of the new moon of September, which is happening on September 9th. And Mars is just getting out of Capricorn. And Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Venus is in exile in Scorpio. So both of them have a specific strength, power, I would say. And that square is key because that area where Mars is exactly where, well, not exactly maybe, but it's still in the same area where the moon was at the moment of the total lunar eclipse of July 27th, which was a very important moment. Remember, the moon was in conjunction with Lilith, with the South Node and Mars, all there in at the beginning of Aquarius. And since then, Mars kept retrograding, so now he's at the end of Capricorn. But still, it's still in the same area. And that area is charged with that work that started at this moment of the full lunar eclipse, which is a great work on the connection with Mars and the moon, and also the Lilith, which is kind of a color of the moon, I would say. It's kind of the strength of Mars, you know, the kind of our push of energy when we become teenager. That push is always there for all our life. All this Mars energy, that this desire of I want this, I desire that, and you just want to go there and you do it, right? And you go get it. And that energy with the faithfulness of the moon, of the feminine side of things. So these are two very different energies, and at this moment we kind of contracted some memories from it, because the South Node was there also, of course. So we contacted some memories from this energy of we want this, we desire this, we just go for it, and we'll go for whatever we desire, and the faithfulness of the moon, which keep the connection at all time, and Mars that sometimes doesn't care because he wants something else, so he go get it. So he lost that connection. And so the violence that Mars had towards the moon and Lilith at this moment is very strong. And so those memories around that, there's a lot of stories in our genealogies, all of us, I think, that concern that very topic. So there's a lot of work that is moving since that moment of that total lunar eclipse. And it was concerning the moon mainly, that preserves the space. But now Venus was very active in August. It had a square with Saturn and Pluto, and now it comes with in square with Mars at that very place. So we have Venus that worked on herself a lot, that saw a lot of limitations with Saturn and Pluto in August, and now strong from that inner work, I would say, create that square with Mars, which is so bright. Actually, Mars is brighter than Venus those days, which is really rare. It won't happen for, I think, about 100 years or so. It's quite crazy. If you like to stargaze, it's a really nice time to go and have a look at Mars. So that square is quite strong. Two energies that we worked on in the last 2 months are there, and they form a square. So in our emotional reality, it will be huge what we'll feel at this moment. And that square between Venus and Mars will kind of stay on for the entire month of September, because it's still on at the full moon of September on September 24th, because Venus is slowing down and Mars is just starting to be direct again. So they kind of follow each other for a while, then Venus will retrograde and Mars will keep going, so they will even get back to forming a trine, which is 30 more degrees, so they will kind of create a bigger gap with time. But for the month of September, they will stick to each other quite a bit. So that square will always be there in the back of our mind. So that's a very important aspect. There's another one which is key. It's a great blue triangle formed with 3 trines that are made between Saturn and Uranus, which follow each other since quite a while. And this time we had the same thing with the Sun at the full moon of August, during the that full moon of August. So we had that same great blue trine, but it was with the Sun. Now this time at the new moon of September, it's with Mercury. So it's gonna touch our mentality, our mind. It's gonna even touch our mind this time. And this is actually the work with Saturn and Uranus that are in trine, and this is already preparing it's preparing the ground, right? Our inner ground for that switch from Saturn to Uranian energy, Saturnian to Uranian energy. And that's already happening from those 2 great blue triangles, one with the Sun at the full moon of August, and now one with Mercury at the new moon of September, just one after the other. Of course, Mercury always follows the Sun. And those 2, remember, both Sun and Mercury will be in conjunction at the full moon of September that we just talked about. So this is very important because it's preparing the ground, and it's going to be, Mercury will be in Virgo, so very strong, you know, Mercury in Virgo, it's exalted and also ruling the sign, so very strong. And it all really shows how this passage of energy from Saturnian to Uranian following the full moons, remember what we just talked about, well, it will also touch our mentality, our mind. And we see it from that great trine. It's very nice how it's all set for us. So that's a really important one. And there's another main aspect, very important. It's a kind of a series of sextiles that even form trines, because when you have many sextiles following each other, you have trines because 2 sextiles forms a trine. So it starts with Sun and Moon in Virgo, and then it forms a first sextile with Jupiter in Scorpio, then a second sextile with Pluto in Capricorn, and another one with Neptune in Pisces. So it's all the last signs of Earth and water from Virgo to Pisces. All of them are involved, and they form sextiles like these, and trines as well, of course, between Sun and Moon, and Pluto. And same thing goes for Neptune and Jupiter. So very harmonious, really connecting the earth signs and the water signs together. So all this feminine aspect, all our femininity, because water and earth signs are all very feminine, more receptive. So all of those will be connected through very beautiful planets if it's very harmonious. So it's really creating a base that allows us to live the tension that will arise from the square with Mars and Venus, which we just talked about. So that's very nicely set. A lot of energy in August. I think that tells you most of it. So thank you very much for your time. And again, of course, you can like, subscribe and all that. If you have comments, please write them. If you want me to talk more about whatever topic, you can ask it in the comments. I'll be happy to do it in future capsules and so on. I can also answer from your comments and so on. So yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much, and see you next time for the month of October.